I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Minakaims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
Let's look at first and foremost Christian Gonzalez, how he matched up against DK Metcalf. And we wrote a little bit about this, Tayler, on CLNSmedia.com, so you may have already read it on there. You may have already seen it on Twitter. But we're going to dive a little deeper here into how Gonzo originally in this game, DK Metcalf had his number, got physical with him, and then Gonzalez bounced back, comes back to his strengths, uses, frankly, his great cornerback technique, bounces back and is able to cover him up. And, down the stretch, I think in the final stat line was that Gonzo only let up like 3 catches on him when he was in coverage compared to the 10 for 100 yards and a touchdown that DK actually had. So how did he do it? Pull it up and let's talk through it.
Yeah, so this is another game where Christian Gonzalez was the main person shadowing, not only the main person, he was the person shadowing DK Metcalf throughout the game. We saw that against Ja'Marr Chase. Once again, for the second week in a row, the only time you didn't see Christian Gonzalez on DK Metcalf was when the Patriots were playing cover 2, and Gonzalez was one of those cloud or flat defenders with DK Metcalf somewhere in the slot. So they continue to trust Christian Gonzalez on an island in these big moments. Early on, honestly, it was not pretty for Christian Gonzalez. We're going to see that here. I'm not going to harp on any of these plays. It's just necessary to understand where exactly this game started out, because I asked Christian Gonzalez actually leading up to the week, how do you really want to play a guy like DK Metcalf? Do you want to get physical with him? Do you want to out-athlete him? And then Gonzo goes, well, he's a pretty great athlete. I'm like, yeah, but you are too. Because my thought was, DK's such a unicorn, and that obviously he's big and he's fast, and you just don't see people built like him in the NFL. He's also one of the strongest, most powerful wide receivers in the NFL, like A.J. Brown, but I put him a tick higher than that. So with Gonzalez, as physical as he is, and he likes to play his press, I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea against DK, because there just aren't a lot of people built to handle his physicality other than like Brandon Browner from, the 2024 Super Bowl run. So I say all that as a precursor to what's about to happen, because it was ugly for Gonzo early on. DK Metcalf, known as a bully, like a guy who tries to impose his will, and that's pretty much what happened early on in this game. What in the world just happened there? All right, here we go. So right at the bottom of the screen, DK throws him pretty much. No flag or anything. This is just DK on the backside of the route, letting you know, young blood, this is not going to be fun for you.
This is not your league just yet, Christian Gonzalez. I'm still a man in this situation. Yeah, right. But
tries it out, and DK just shoves him to the ground. Then we get another one where they're outside. This one was kind of tough. Yeah. DK is going to fake like he's breaking outside. Christian Gonzalez is playing catch technique, where this time he's like, all right, I'm not going to get mano-a-mano with you. I'm going to try to catch you at the top of your break. What happens is DK throws an outside move. Christian Gonzalez squats on it, realizes DK is breaking back inside, but DK also is going to do a great job using his hands to swat any potential contact, and Gonzo ends up once again on the turf.
On the ground.
This is bizarre. I've never seen this from Gonzalez. Usually his balance is great. He is always in control of reps. So seeing this, I literally FaceTimed you and the guys. I was like, fellas, I don't know what happened. DK was eating Gonzo's lunch a little bit early on.
That one reminded me a little bit, and obviously it's not the same route, it's not the same concept or anything, but last week when we were breaking him down against Ja'Marr Chase, where there was the play where Chase beat him on 3rd down because Gonzo basically had that sort of foot fire thing going on and didn't get on top of Chase in time, where here it's similar, where it's almost like he's not trusted himself and he's getting a little anxious and he's like, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Instead of just remaining calm like he ends up doing later in the game and staying with him hip on hip and kind of just going through DK's route and essentially running it for him later on. Here, he really catches him. He's backing up and DK basically sees it, makes the move on him, and then he's toast.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even hate the technique necessarily from Gonzo, because I think he does a good job. Like, he clearly knows where the sticks are, right? Because the sticks for him are this line right here. So he wants to force DK to at least get here, and then he's going to break. See? So he gives it a little more room, but then it's just tough at that point because DK is such a big guy. He's got a head of steam. You want to slow him down at least. And I think that's Gonzo's mentality here. It's just he misses because DK's setting him up. And then there's one more play where DK kind of asserts his dominance. This is just going to be a screen. It's not even like Gonzo's covering him, but it's just another example of DK being like, yeah, this is going to be a long day for you if you try to get physical with me. Pushes him at the end of the block. Now, this ended up being offensive pass interference from DK, and Christian Gonzalez also got called for a phantom face mask, you shouldn't have gotten called for this because it's actually under the chin strap, not actually the face mask. I missed that at first watching it live. So both guys get flagged. It's an offsetting penalty, but again, a tone-setting play from Christian Gonzalez saying, yeah, I'm going to lock you up, then push you and finish. Once again,
and then the flags come flying.
Right. So the lesson learned is you don't want DK to get his hands on you. This man's hands are toxic, all right? Christian Gonzalez, though, showing the maturity to be able to switch up his approach. Some corners may say, you know what? No, I'm going to win this eventually, and then pound their head against the wall until they're knocked unconscious, right? But Gonzo said
until they're fighting like Andre Johnson and Cortland Finnegan that time.
Exactly. I'm glad it didn't get there because Gonzo, he'll pay it forward a little bit, but he also kept his head square. But so what Christian Gonzalez did was instead of trying to really catch necessarily DK at the top of his routes, he said, I'm just going to use my crazy hip fluidity and my length to just mirror you. Like, I'm not going to try to touch you. I just want to give myself a chance at the catch point, and I'll close then. And this is an example of why Christian Gonzalez can do that, because his hip fluidity is so rare for a guy who's, I think, 6'2", like 200 something pounds. Like, he should not be able to move the way he does. Look at the hip sync. Not a crazy route from decaf, but the ability to be on top of the route and then break like this. If this was thrown, Gonzo could have undercut it or at least been competitive enough to make a play. And again, I understand that DK is not exactly running full speed here, but still, the hip drop and fluidity from there from Gonzo,
no, that's perfect.
Kind of tool that he's going to use throughout the game to beat Metcalf, or at least keep competitive. So let this run real quick. This is one of Christian Gonzalez's best plays on the day, showing his technique, becoming the receiver, closing space, squeezing to the sideline, and then trying to make a play on the ball himself. Now, go through this one more time. Again, he's not going to try to catch Metcalf. He's just going to run with him, read the hips, see where his eyes are. Eyes looking at Metcalf's hips, reads it's a vertical route. Once he does, and the route's pretty much declared, you're going to see Gonzo. This is when he gets contact, right? So he just wants to put himself in position where he's right there downfield with Metcalf, looking for the ball, jumps up, can't make a play on it in terms of like actually becoming the receiver and catching it, but still, neither one of those guys has a good chance at the ball. Great coverage and patience and poise there from Christian Gonzalez.
You don't have to even go back to it, but the hip fluidity from this guy is something that makes him and was the reason, essentially, in my opinion, why he was the number 17 overall pick last year. Like, that's obviously it's rare, but it's also one of like the top, I guess, the top traits you need as a cornerback, because you essentially a lot of times have to run routes with guys, for guys, when not knowing what they do. And to be able to not just like, guys flip their hips and they'll eat shit sometimes, frankly, because they just don't have that, right? And they'll get juked out of their pants, but it doesn't happen with Gonzo because he's able to just, we talked about it with Chase, and it was a different route, but it was similar to that out route that Chase ran in week 1, where Gonzo just read where he was going, flipped his hips, and it like he ran the route for him. And it's same thing as that other route before with DK. So, I mean, it's rare, and I almost don't like that he tried to be physical with DK when this was just what he had to do all along, and maybe he wouldn't have even got his crap pushed in, for lack of a better term, to start the game, because this is just, again, this play right here, after already, now it was a miscommunication between him and Duggar, but after they had already gotten beaten by DK deep once, this could be a confident shot, like, oh, I don't know if we can do this again, but instead he runs with him the whole way and makes a perfect play on it. It's perfect.
And that's a huge credit to Gonzalez and his mentality. And honestly, I'm cool with him trying to be physical at first. He wanted to see if it would work, and it didn't. And he very quickly adjusted. Like, these are all man coverage snaps also. So it's not like zone. This is really when they were mano-a-mano. All right, now here's an example. So first of all, Christian Gonzalez, when we're not counting the miscommunication with Duggar because Duggar took responsibility.
Right.
Gonzo has never let up a deep catch in his NFL career, meaning any pass that's gone 20 or more air yards, he is not allowed a completion, which is incredible considering he's shadowing the best receivers every single week. Now here's a play where Christian Gonzalez coming out, one of the big questions was his physicality and his tackling ability. In the pros, he's pretty much quieted those doubts. Obviously, hasn't played a full NFL season yet. But here's an example where DK in space, this can be really tough, right? If you don't have the right technique, you try to tackle him, he can slip it and then with his speed pop off for a big game. But here, Gonzo's going to follow him across the formation. Quick throw to the flat. Then he's going to come to balance Gonzo. So see that? He's going to get his hips under him. He's square. and then is going to corral DK Metcalf, tries to spin out of it. Gonzo's like, nope, you're not going anywhere. I gotcha. Lets his guys rally to make the tackle. Not going to go too deep into this play, but it's just a good example of Christian Gonzalez. They tried to beat him a different way and said, all right, we can't go downfield on this kid.
Right.
Maybe we can try to force him to tackle a 230-pound receiver when he's got a 20-pound weight disadvantage. Doesn't work on Gonzo.
And someone too, Tayler, who it's only his 7th NFL game, and it's someone who came in, one of his weaknesses was tackling. So now not only is he tackling, but he's tackling DK freaking Metcalf, who I see in the chat someone mentioning, creative player, 6'4", 235. Guy could either juke him out of his shorts, guy could just shove him into the turf, which he did earlier in the game.
Yeah.
But Gonzo, and I like how you mentioned he comes to balance. I don't know if you caught this from Gerard Mayo, but it's not breaking down. Okay, good. I'm glad you said it like that, because in the Mayo Strader, talking about how it was the Joe Cardona play, I think, right? Where we don't break down, because if you break down, you fire your feet, you slow up. Instead, you come to balance and you get into tackling technique, and it's a perfect play. He doesn't allow him to juke him out, and he makes the tackle. All right, so you watch it again, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff with Gonzo, because there was love it. So you mentioned here too, Tayler, New England has to be careful with those zone disguises. Because obviously that's how they got burnt for the DK touchdown. And there was the other one too, where we talked about it. You sent it over. I think you tweeted it as well, but it was the I think it's this one. Is it this one right here? Where
is this? The drop.
Different play. Okay, but go through it and what's going on with these zone disguises basically, and why do they need to fix them?
Well, I'll go through this one. This was my last play kind of with Gonzo and Metcalf and that little kind of chess match they had. Okay. So this is another one where it's kind of similar to the route that we saw earlier, where it's going to be a route that Gonzalez is going to beat off and try to react to what the route is. Now on this one, DK is just going to run a slant, pretty straightforward. And there were a lot of drops in this game from the Seahawks receivers, and it really overshadowed what was an incredible – didn't overshadow, but Geno Smith had an incredible performance, and a lot of that production was left on the field because his receivers didn't follow through. But still, Gonzalez puts himself in a position where he reads the route as soon as DK declares. You see him breaking, waits for the ball just in case he tries to read it, make a play on it. DK isn't able to make the catch. At the very least, Gonzo would have been able to punch this out if DK did make the catch, But then what I like most, the reason I really put this in, is at the end. Gonzo, some little push off, not a whole lot, but still, like we mentioned, there is that mental game. And part of it is DK wants to physically dominate you and make you feel inferior to his just ungodly skill set. And now you see a little competitiveness like we saw last week from Gonzo too, where he's kind of pushing Jamar Chase around. He's like, a little something at the end, nothing crazy. But, I just like to see the attitude from Gonzo. I'm not going to make a huge about it, but, a play you like to see. It's a drop, on a good throw. Bottom line is, though, Gonzalez did a really good job adjusting his technique and trying to avoid that contact with DK and instead say, hey, I'm going to try to affect the catch point rather than get into some boxing match or hand fight with DK because he knew he wasn't going to be able to win.
Yep. All right. What do they got to fix?
Yeah, so with these disguise zones, so I went into the numbers. The Patriots are playing the second most cover 2 in the NFL in terms of rate usage behind the Bills. Now, this isn't crazy for the Patriots because they were third last year. Like we mentioned on the show before, they like to play cover 1 and then mix in some cover 2 because it throws off your reads a little bit. And it's a pretty, not easy, but there's ways to disguise it from cover 1 structures. But this season, the Patriots are really playing cover 2, and they're showing a lot of zero looks. So they're showing all-out blitz and then shifting to cover 2. But the added element that makes it so difficult is not just that it's showing one thing and doing another. You don't usually know, at least through 2 weeks, where the deep half defenders are going to be. So for the Patriots, like based on what we saw last week, it could be Christian Gonzalez going into a deep half. It could be Kyle Duggar going into this deep half. You basically have no idea because of all the ways they can disguise this. Now, I'm not positive this is a cover 2 shell. It's hard to read with this kind of blitz because they kind of play like birds on a fence a little bit. But we do know that Kyle Duggar was responsible for the laps. So you can see him. I have him highlighted right there. You can see Duggar communicating something to the defense. I think he is. And then when they do this, a lot of the time it is checking them into some kind of all-out blitz look.
Sure.
So I think what Duggar's anticipating is that my guess is he thinks they're maybe going to have like a go to the running back and then some kind of out to DK. Because the way he plays this, he's squatting like he thinks that something's coming underneath, right? Mm-hmm. Like if DK were running it out, he'd be able to jump it. Or if maybe Geno was going to throw something like a little curl here, and maybe it's a seam, but he thinks that Gonzo's carrying the seam, then Duggar's ready to potentially bounce on this if it's there. But what happens instead is DK runs up the seam and no one carries him at all. And if Duggar's taking responsibility, the likely outcome was supposed to be that he was going to cover deep, and then Gonzo was supposed to maybe hit the flat and take that shallow route from the running back.
So now here's a question for you, and this is a genuine question as we talk it out. This isn't like a rhetorical thing. So I was listening to Andrew Callahan earlier today about how this is something where they bring that guy in motion, and so he actually ends up chipping that DN so that they have all their guys accounted for while they still get the rush off. Could Duggar also be anticipating that guy coming in motion and running a flat route as well, or is he strictly reading DK? Could that have thrown him off as well to think, oh, they have someone coming, we don't have enough guys out here, they have our leverage, we need to sit on this guy coming in motion, and then he ends up being a part of the protection and it's not a factor at all?
That's totally possible because before this guy actually settles down, you've already seen that Duggar's starting to creep down. Right. So it's possible maybe that he thought it was some type of screen. The Seahawks did run a few screens from similar looks in this game, so that's entirely possible as well. But the bottom line here is that it's a blown coverage, and it's the worst case scenario where not only do you miss the assignment, but there's no one to save you, and you let the fastest player on the field walk into the end zone untouched. And that wasn't the only time this happened either, because that time it was not on Gonzo. This time it was. So this is actually going to be a cover 2 disguise, whereas you're going to see Duggar is going to take this deep half. Then it looks like they're going to invert it where Christian Gonzalez is responsible for the half to this side with, I think it's Marcus Jones playing the flat. Then you're going to get a deep hook right here. Then you're going to get zone, and this defender playing the flat. And you're going to get another vertical route from DK Metcalf, but Gonzo is squatting. The pressure is going to save it, though, because Dietrich Wise is going to get his hand there, force Geno Smith to step up in the pocket, and the throw doesn't get as much mustard as he wants on it. But as you can see, DK Metcalf is wide open.
Wide open.
Work for that pressure, which ends up leading to Jabril Peppers having a chance at getting a hand on the football. That's a touchdown, easily. And it would have been their second touchdown on a blown coverage of the day. So these are the things you just can't have in these disguise coverages. And the reason I really highlight this is this week they're playing Aaron Rodgers. You are not going to show Aaron Rodgers anything that he has not seen in some form or fashion at the NFL level. What I want to see from the Patriots is this week I need to see them go back to their roots, what they did more with Bill Belichick. And yes, I want them to disguise, but more than anything, I want them to be structurally sound. If that means, hey, we're going to play more man coverage and just show you exactly what it is, that's fine. The last time they played Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, there was a whole lot of man coverage and there wasn't a whole lot of trickery because they knew that, if we sacrifice and have somebody from the slot bailing into a deep half, but he's not fast enough, Aaron Rodgers is just going to put air on the ball. And while you're trying to track it while looking at it, our guy's already got a boost and he's going to be able to make that grab. So this week, I need to see more straightforward coverages, back to fundamentals, and just play the ball and be able to rely on your guys to win one-on-one matchups. Because as much as I think this, whole switch to more zone coverages can work, because by reading the ball, you can make more plays on the ball and get those interceptions and turnovers. Aaron Rodgers isn't that kind of guy. You're not going to get a whole lot of turnovers that he causes. So I think the priority needs to be affecting the catch point and making sure his guys can't bring the ball in.
Support us and sign up at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the app today and use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5.